When Lord Vader discovered that he had a son, it is one of the most shocking moments in all of the lore. But with this raises another extremely important question. Sidious knew that Vader had a son even before Vader himself did, a piece of lore that is often overlooked. So how did Darth Sidious find out that Luke was Anakin's son? Greetings and welcome back to the channel. Following the Battle of Hoth, Vader was summoned to an audience with the Emperor via hologram. It's in this meeting that Palpatine simply states that there is a disturbance in the Force, before revealing that the young rebel who blew up the Death Star was in fact the son of Anakin Skywalker. Vader's reaction is curious, but mild, mostly because we know that from the comics, Vader had already found out the truth from Boba, and did of course know that he had a son. But of course, he feigned ignorance for his master, and so that he would not suspect the treachery that Vader was planning. But how exactly did the Emperor himself come to find out Luke's identity? This is a question that has long been up in the air, with most assuming that he knew based off of the fact that he was simply the Emperor. But there was also, of course, the fact that in his old age, Sidious relied heavily on the powers of foresight, looking deeply into the Force itself to search for answers. He was one of the few Sith with the capability to do so, and he would thoroughly abuse this gift every chance that he got. Interestingly, it actually would be this very power of foresight that showed him the truth of Luke's heritage, showing to him that he was in fact a Skywalker, and showing Palpatine that his reign would be questioned in a frightening vision. So my friends, let us begin. Our story comes from The Empire Strikes Back: A Certain Point of View, a book pertaining to several short stories, all of different perspectives of surrounding events of Episode 5. This entire sequence happens minutes before he decides to speak with Vader over hologram. Palpatine is meditating on the dark side of the Force in the Sith shrine underneath the former Jedi Temple on Coruscant, bathing in its glory. It is here where Palpatine senses a massive disturbance. He sees quick flashes of the moment that Luke pulls the trigger on the X-Wing to destroy the Death Star, and in this single instance, there was a sudden spike in the Force that sent ripples across the fabric of the energy field. It all came echoing right now to Palpatine, and it came in a crashing disturbance. Darth Sidious delves deeply into the Force, seizing command over this moment to show him insight into this grand disturbance. However, he is met with resistance. Someone or something is trying to hide from him the truth of the rebel. Palpatine describes it as a wall of wind currents trying to push against him. It was strong, but he was stronger. Forcefully pushing his way through, Palpatine strong-arms his way into finding the truth, and it is here where he is granted another vision. Sidious finds himself standing in the doorway to his own throne. The bodies of the royal guards lie strewn about the floor without their heads. Standing in the middle of the room amongst the guards was a Sith clad in black, a robe with the hood pulled up to conceal their identity. In his hand, a burning crimson blade. Palpatine is able to tell that this Sith is not an old man like Dooku, not covered in tattoos like Maul, and definitely not hulking like Vader. But he is still just a young boy. Beyond this, the Sith's hood obscures his features. Palpatine then looks up to the throne in the room, where he sees himself sitting there, concerned with the death of his many royal guards. And then, the hooded figure moves towards the Emperor. Now being able to see more of his face, it is Luke. And Sidious watches Luke raise his hand and begin to force choke the Emperor. The Emperor in this vision tries to fight back with force lightning, but he barely even grazes Luke. He even tries to send all of the objects in the room hurling towards him, but the Dark Lord Luke is too powerful. Without even moving, he is able to shove the objects away. Not even the full might of the Emperor conjuring a maelstrom of power is able to even stifle Luke. The Emperor is dropped to his knees, writhing in pain from Luke's force choke, and he then attempts to summon his lightsaber from across the room. However, Luke just looks at it and stops it from reaching the Emperor's hand. Instead, it floats there and activates. A voice in the room comes from somewhere Sidious cannot quite ascertain yet, and the voice says, "Do it." Sidious watches, not with fear, but with fascination. Luke uses the floating lightsaber to execute the Emperor in the vision, as the empire that Sidious built comes to a crashing end. Following this, Luke walks forward and kneels before where Sidious was standing, removing his hood and fully revealing his identity. A voice that was not his own comes from his mouth again, saying, "You have done well." In shock, Sidious realizes that he's experiencing the vision through the eyes of another person. It wasn't a vision, it was a dream, someone's deepest desire, and he knew exactly who it was. The voice was one he hadn't heard in a very long time. The voice belonged to Anakin Skywalker, completely uninhibited by the mask. The body of the individual Palpatine was watching the vision through, then strode forward and looked in the window, catching his own reflection. Palpatine saw that it was in fact the body of Anakin, but Skywalker if he had never been burned and had never been put within the suit. He looked the same as he did when he was younger, and it was at this point that Sidious began to speculate. He did not know who Luke is, and he wondered if he was some individual from the unknown regions that Vader had found, a dark acolyte trained in secret. But with Vader's involvement, this acolyte became something more. But then, we get to read directly from Sidious's mind. It didn't surprise Palpatine to discover that Lord Vader dreams of overthrowing him. All Sith did. But mere dreams weren't usually powerful enough to cause a disturbance in the Force, even ones that carried some level of potential prophecy. Something else had been behind this. Something this powerful needed passion and desire behind it. This boy was the connection. And why was Lord Vader so focused on protecting him? The Force then literally tried to push Sidious out of the vision, obscuring his sight once more. But Sidious dug his heels in and held fast, anchoring himself with the full might of his power. He had to know. The vision shifted to show Anakin and Luke walking up to an ornate balcony, one which overlooked many Star Destroyers all leaping into hyperspace. Palpatine wasn't the least bit surprised to see Padme standing there, looking youthful and vibrant. He knew that if it was Vader's hopeful delusion that he was watching, that she was the last thing that would make it complete. But that's when it all came crashing down. Luke addressed Vader as father, and Padme as mother. And now, Sidious was hit with a revelation, and suddenly, Palpatine saw things for what they truly were. The disturbance, the fierce defense of the vision within the ethereal chaos, the desire, the need for secrecy, not just a strategic endeavor, but an explosion of emotion, one that ripped through the Force itself. How long had Vader known? It was at this moment that Palpatine put all the pieces together, learning the name, Luke Skywalker. It all made sense as to why Vader had been obsessively searching for the rebels, why Vader had put every ship, every officer, every bounty hunter and probe droid on the hunt for this rebel leader. Sidious should have been frightened, or at least thought that he might be, but instead, Sidious found it amusing and even satisfactory. The Force pushed him out of the vision one final time, and now he led it, returning to his throne room of power in the physical. Sidious wasn't the least bit worried. He knew Luke would make an extremely powerful asset. As a younger and more powerful apprentice, he could take Vader's place, and then Sidious would have the final laugh. This was how the true Sith responded to disturbances in the Force, not cowering as the Jedi did. Those are the thoughts of Darth Sidious, as he commands his officer to tell Vader to contact him immediately. And as soon as all of this ends, the conversation takes place that we are familiar with from The Empire Strikes Back. And that, my friends, is how Palpatine discovered that Luke was Anakin Skywalker's son. I really enjoyed this story, and not only what it did to see the Emperor's foresight and work, but we get to see what Darth Vader envisioned for himself. One where he would join Luke and have his family as the new Emperor, wanting Luke and Padme to embrace the path of the Sith, supporting Vader in subjugating the galaxy and enforcing peace on their terms. This was everything that Lord Vader wanted, and Sidious had forcefully invaded that dream and watched it all unfold, infiltrated the mind of Darth Vader specifically, even if Vader did not know it. Something else intriguing is exactly how powerful in the Force Vader expected Luke to become, with Luke alone holding the power to kill Palpatine with little effort. Luke as a Dark Lord would truly be a terrifying sight to behold, and it seemed that Sidious had the same mind, that Luke could become the perfect Sith. But anyway, my friends, what are your thoughts on this revelation and this short story? Was this the way that you expected that Palpatine had learned that Luke was Anakin Skywalker's son? What are your thoughts on how Sidious reacted to this and found it amusing and even laughable? Thank you as always so much for visiting the channel today, my friends, and may the Force be with you.